Headliner Nation, it's finally happened. We are getting football in 2020. And Jake and I, for months now, have been telling you all, stay positive. We're going to speak it into existence. It's going to happen. And just a little bit ago, we get confirmation that the NFL and the NFLPA have come to an agreement on a reworked deal for the collective bargaining agreement to get players on the field and have a 2020 season. I'm pumped, Headliner Nation. I hope you're pumped as well. And we wanted to do a quick video for you to give you a breakdown on what is going to be happening here in 2020 and what you need to expect from a season that's going to look a little bit different than what we have seen in the past. So, baby, the NFL is officially back. The NFLPA Board of Representatives voted 29-3 to adopt amendments to the 2020 collective bargaining agreement. And that was made so they could make adjustments on a lot of different things. We're going to talk about it right now. But the deal is expected to be signed on Monday, July 27th. And then after that deal is signed, players can start reporting. But we'll talk about that here in a second. Let's talk about one of the big questions that have been asked about player opt-outs. Now, when the deal is signed on Monday, as it is expected, players will have 7 days from the time that agreement is signed to make a decision on whether they want to play or opt out. Now, they're going to give an option to players for two different opt-outs. Number one is high risk. And they talk about those high risk players, a lot of different things, a lot of different maybe sicknesses or underlying issues that they might have that normally they can play with and be just fine, but would put them into a high risk category. Now, one of those high risk categories is a BMI over a certain percentage, but because a majority of NFL players are over that, that does not count as high risk. So high risk players, if they opt out, they're going to get a $350,000 stipend with no accrued or credited season. But if a player decides that they just don't feel it is safe enough and they just want to opt out regardless, they can do that for a $150,000 salary advance. And again, no accrued or credited season, which could be big for maybe some younger players or guys coming into free agency. Those types of things might end up making an impact on them because there's going to be no accrued or credited season for them if they do decide to opt out. Now, training camp, it can begin on Tuesday after the deal is signed. So players can start reporting. And here is what some of this is going to look like. Day one, they're going to do testing and virtual meetings. And then day 2 and 3, they'll do virtual meetings again. And then day 4, another round of testing, another round of virtual meetings, and then all the players will have their physicals on days 5 and 6. And more than likely, this will be to give enough time for testing centers to get those results back, find out if anyone is positive. If they are, get them quarantined and away from the team, have another round of testing, and then make sure that they didn't contract it from anybody else. After physicals are done, days 7 through 15, strength and conditioning will happen during that time. They'll get a day off during that time as well, but strength and conditioning is what will happen. And day 16 is when they can get out on the field and start having practices. So again, this is really about ramping up. A lot of these guys, yeah, they've been out on the field and training on their own, but they haven't really been going through some of this training that you would do as a team. So their strength and conditioning will happen 7 through 15. Day 16, they can start practices, and then day 21 is when they will finally put the pads on. How much padded practices we'll be having this year, I don't know. A lot of teams may opt to just kind of stay away from that to begin with and maybe, again, work their way back casually. But again, social distancing will be a big thing for these players. They're going to want to keep guys as far apart as much as possible until they really need to get them together. So we'll see how that all plays out as training camp opens and we start getting guys out on the field. Now, for the rosters for this year, teams can carry 90-man rosters in training camp, but they'll have to reduce to 80 players by August 16th. Now, part of the asterisk next to this, and one of the special circumstances you have to keep in mind, it's going to depend on the state in which the players are in, and then the local kind of rules and regulations that the CDC or governors or whatever have put in place, because most of the teams are not going to be able to have that many players within their facilities because they'll be over the percentage of people that you can have within that facility. So there might be some teams that if they're going to be carrying more than 80 players, they're going to have to have 2 separate facilities to house their players. Now, I don't know how that's going to work. We'll have to see. Some teams may just opt not to carry that many players right away and see what happens. But what about the salary cap? The salary cap this year is going to remain unchanged. It will still be $198 million here in 2020. Now, the cap in 2021 was a big sticking point because there was some concerns that if there is a huge revenue downfall this year, because we already know they're not going to end up meeting their revenue that they had last season or in previous seasons, okay? But they cannot go below $175 million regardless of what their revenue shortcomings are. The cap is going to depend, though, on the revenue generated in 2020. So they're going to say, basically at this point, let's plan on having $175 million as the salary cap in 2021. However, if for some reason we are able to generate more revenue than what we are anticipating, then we can go up from that number to a point in which teams feel okay with. So that's going to be a changing factor as well, and that's something that we'll want to look at next offseason. That's going to be a big thing next offseason we'll want to pay attention to, because with the free agent class next year and a lot of other different things, there could be some guys who next year could be a huge free agent class or end up being one, because some teams may just not be able to sign players, or they might already be, if they're over $175 million, they're going to have to cut guys to get down to that. But we'll talk about that next offseason and worry about it then. What about 2020 player salaries? Well, there is a fund that is being created to help offset potential loss of salaries. If the 2020 season is stopped at any time, no salaries are going to be paid. So this fund is going to essentially allow players to pick up that lost salary up through 2023. So they'll still end up getting their money. However, they might not end up getting it all right now. If anything happens and they don't end up getting paid, they'll end up picking up the rest of what was supposed to be paid this year, paid out over the next 3 years in 2021, 2022, and 2023. So that was a good way for the NFL to kind of help the teams out and say, because of the revenue this year, we obviously don't want to create too many shortcomings. We'll allow you to pay out some of those salaries over the next couple of years. So the NFL Players Association board did a good job of kind of working that situation out, so players are still going to get their money. It might not just be right away. So that's what we know right now. That's a lot of information to take in. We're still going to have to see some other things play out over the next couple of days as training camps open. Make sure you're keeping your eyes on the news. But like I said, we're getting NFL football, okay? There's still some things could happen. As this entire year has been, it's a fluid situation. Things could change at any minute. But this deal right here tells us that the NFL, the Players Association, the players, the coaches, everybody involved wants to get guys on the field in 2020, wants to have a season, and wants to do it safely, because testing protocols and things are also being worked out, but they are getting done. One thing that we've seen about testing protocols is that maybe you get tested every day or every other day, and then if the percentage of players is staying beneath a certain percentage threshold, they'll spread that testing out a little bit more and not make guys test so often. So that's still to come as well. But there you have it, Headliner Nation. Wanted to drop this video for you to keep you updated on what is going on in the world of the NFL. You know we love breaking some news over here on the Fantasy Headliners. And again, this just happened less than a couple of hours ago. Over the last hour, these details have been coming out. So hopefully y'all liked the video and it helped put your mind at ease that we're going to get some football this year. Thanks so much for tuning into the Fantasy Headliners. Hit that like button. Let us know if you have any questions below in the comments. Might not be able to answer them because we might not know the answers to them yet either. And of course, if you're new here to the Fantasy Headliners, hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much, Headliner Nation. Stay safe, stay healthy. I'll catch you on the next episode. Have a good one.